Sports Counterpoints podcast, June the 1st, 2022. What's happening, everybody? I'm GB. Check us out, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen. GB, Coop, and Brian on the lines. What's up, fellas?
What's going on?
All right, back again.
Back again, man. So today we're just talking NBA Finals. We'll talk a little bit about the Lakers coach because we're all Laker fans, and kind of anything else that pops into the mainframe, if you will. But pretty much it's NBA Finals time. So that's that's what we're talking about. Hockey's going, baseball's going. There's a lot of stuff happening in the sports world, but for us, we're kind of all watching the finals, and that's what's next. So we're just kind of do a preview and our thoughts on this last bit of the season and kind of what everybody's thinking. So, let's take it away, guys. You got the Warriors and the Celtics. Let's start with the East, man. What are you guys thinking about this matchup and then the Celtics in particular?
Okay, well, I mean, look, it all worked out the way that both Jason and I kind of said it would, with Boston and the Warriors making it to the finals. In the East, I thought that was an outstanding series that went down to the very end. And there's all this video footage now of how Struss may have not stepped on the out of bounds line when he made a three, and that got overturned. They have the ability to challenge that. They didn't. So I think that ship has sailed. But it's a great series. I thought Miami played excellent basketball. I thought that Jimmy Butler showed that he's a man amongst men. I mean, just outstanding heart. They would not have been in a game 7 if it wasn't for Jimmy Butler, and they wouldn't have come back in that game 7 if it wasn't for Jimmy Butler. That guy's got so much heart. I do think he needs one more player if they're going to go from the Eastern Conference Finals to a real championship contender. I think they need one more. I'm not saying it needs to be someone like Joel Embiid, who posted they need another star down in Miami, but they need something. They need something so that Jimmy Butler doesn't have to be amazing night in and night out for them to get to the finals or to win a championship. But they're not that far away. The role players know how to play.
That's why they got Kyle Lowry, I thought.
Exactly. Kyle Lowry. Mike Lowry.
Let's see a Coop on mute. All right, go ahead, B.
But they brought him there with that intention. He's not that dude. I do think he would be a solid third guy. But he's just definitely not the 1A or 1B type guy. And they need that 1A or 1B type guy to go along with Jimmy Butler. At some point in time, Udonis Haslem has to retire before he's got as much gray hair as me. It's just been a lot. Jason, what do you think? What did you think about these?
I think Udonis Haslem has to be about 56 years old, man. He's been on there for a while, man. Damn. I remember he came out of the University of Florida. But anyway, I'm with you, man. Now, I don't think it was necessarily a great series, Brian. I just think Boston just made it harder on themselves to make it go 7 games. Because that game 6, I'm not going to lie, that game 6 where they were 9-point favorites at home and then got beat by 8. I mean, that shocked me. I did not see that coming at all. Maybe they didn't cover the spread, but I knew they were at least going to win the game, and they didn't. They had to go a 7th game. And in Miami, I don't think people realize Miami didn't shoot well. They shot 20% from 3. They shot 41% for the game, and they were still in the game at the end. So,
that's what great defense does, though, right, Jason? I mean,
yeah,
what you saw was a defensive battle, and whether or not he had the talent, they certainly had the grit and the gumption.
Yeah. And that's what Miami is. I said in the last podcast, their grit, their heart. And it's like, it made me realize also, I'm not really I didn't really, dissect Bam before this series, but Bam is not a 2. He's definitely a 3. Kyle Lowry, you guys know, I don't see the hype. I don't think he's that good, whatever. He's just a brickmeister to me in the playoffs. But if Miami had another guy, like a Chris Middleton type of player, I think they would have beaten Boston. I just think Miami is just, I'm not saying they're that good of a team, but grit and toughness and heart can get you through a playoff series like that with Boston, and it almost did. But Jimmy Butler, he played his ass off. I think I got him now. I think he's like probably in the superstar category now. I mean, within playoff performances, putting up 40s like he does in 35-point games. So that's not easy to do in the playoffs this time of year. And he's not healthy as well. I think he has a something injury on his leg or something like that. But I came away, Brian, more impressed with Miami in this series than I did Boston. You know, good to go 7 games. Of course, the better team won, but slightly better only because, like you said, they don't have that other offensive player on Miami that can get them buckets.
I think it's interesting that you picked out Chris Middleton and you said, hey, if they had someone like a Chris Middleton, if Milwaukee had someone like a Chris Middleton
Yeah,
healthy, they would
right.
have been in the NBA
They'll be in the
finals.
finals. Exactly. GB, you got any thoughts on the series?
Man, it was a kind of. We'll talk about the Dubs too, but I just thought it was interesting how many of the games weren't competitive. Like a lot of these games were not close, and usually in the
No,
finals.
the first 4 games were blowouts in either direction, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was new. It felt new to me. I'll put it like that. Maybe it's happened recently, but I don't remember it going down like that. And like you said, it felt like Miami was playing off pure heart. Jimmy Butler's been that dude. He's been going crazy. In the first quarters, was just putting up 20, 25 in the first, just coming out hot. Dude was balling, but they just didn't have enough to get it done. So we'll see what Pat Riley and the boys do for next year. I think also shout out to Eric Spoelstra, because when he came on, I was just thinking, oh, he's got LeBron in them. I wasn't really giving him much coaching credit, but he's done it consistently since they've left with different players. So apparently the boy can coach also, you know what I mean? So shout out to him too.
Yep.
But yeah, Celtics are back. I'm a Laker fan until the death. So boy, am I a Warriors fan for this next week and a half.
Real talk. Speaking of the Warriors, they play in Boston, Brian. So what do you feel? What are your thoughts on the series? Who wins? How many games?
All right. So I said that if the Warriors could figure out how to make it all come together, that they could be at this point in the finals and even make a run, and they did. I think they're going to win this next series. I think they're going to win the finals. I think it's going to be in 5 or 6 games. I like them better to win it in 5, because then they don't have to go back and try and win it in Boston, which is something that's going to be pretty difficult because you have the 2-2-1-1-1. So I'm gonna call the Warriors in 5.
Okay. So I have Boston since the first round of the playoffs. I'm going to stick with them. Very, very hesitant, man. Very. I like them better before they played Miami. Now they played Miami, and it's just like, and the reason why, it's just a lot of reason to like the Warriors, not like Boston. Number one, it's the experience factor, man. They got Steve Kerr's been there, Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond. So they all, got the experience, and Boston is sort of, they're just getting there for the first time. But one thing I like about Boston is it seems like to me watching them in the playoffs, they tense up at the end of games in the quarters. It's like, they have a 9-point lead, but they're going to lose it, which they always do. Their offense sometimes lags, and that's not good against the Warriors, because Boston really has Tatum, who can score. He's capable of putting up 30, maybe Jaylen Brown, but past those 2 guys, I don't know. Whereas the Warriors has Poole, they have Klay, and they have Curry, who could put up 30, in any point in time. So they're not just facing like just Giannis and then letting everybody else do their thing, or just facing Jimmy Butler and let everybody do their thing. They have to face all these guys, and there's a constant motion offense. So I think Boston's going to be at a disadvantage in that. Also, Curry has averaged 35 points a game against Boston the last 6 games, if you don't include the last game, but the 6 games before that. So he's had his way against Boston. Another thing, Boston's 4-4 at home in the playoffs. Brian, that's not good, and they've got significantly outplayed in some of those games. And lastly, the Boston is the kind of team, Brian, to me, they can outplay you. Like, I can see them outplaying the Warriors 4 out of the 5 games and still losing the series in 5 games, because that's how they play. So I'm taking Boston because I had them all.
Let me be clear. You took Boston after that
right,
long explanation.
Right.
Exactly.
I got to stick with Boston. I had them since they played Brooklyn, and honestly, Brian, I thought they were going to play Phoenix in the finals. I honestly thought that. They're playing the Warriors, so it's like, and after I see how they play against Miami, but is there anything about the Warriors that kind of give you like a little bit of a pause, maybe?
So let me first say that all the reasons why you were talking about Boston are same reasons why I don't think they can win it. I think they're too dependent on Tatum, and I think Tatum can get locked up. There's a lot of statistics about how when you have certain defensive matchups with Tatum, he can completely shut him down. And they don't have another guy who can get to that level, just as you said. So I do think that's a big factor in why the Warriors have an upper hand, because they have different avenues. If Steph has a bad shooting night, you can look to Clay, you can look to Poole. But anyways, going on the Warrior side, yeah, I mean, anytime your team is dependent on shooting percentage, as the Warriors are, you can be let down. You can get cold rims for a night, and if you get cold rims for a night, it's a team that can look abysmal for a stretched period of time or for a game. And they've had that they've done that once or twice before. The reason why I would never call the Warriors in a sweep is because of that. I think that the cold rim thing, costs you at least a game, but I think that their experience, their trust in each other, I think that's huge.
Mhm.
That, Clay comes back and they trusted him the same way that they did 2 years ago to take critical shots, which in most cases he has made, actually, the critical shots down the stretch. He's shooting something like 50% from the three in clutch moments, I think is the stat. But anyways, it's hard to build that kind of trust. And I think that's a good reason why the Warriors have a dynamic that is more susceptible to success than the Boston's right now. Why do I think they can lose? Again, cold rims. If they get into a shooting funk, the one thing we all know about that team is it's definitely not going to stop them from shooting. They don't flip that switch like Miami did, by example. When threes are going down, they start going to the rack a lot more. That's just not what the Warriors tend to do. They tend to shoot more and try to shoot themselves out of that funk. And that is why there was the one game that in the last round where Dallas had a big lead. The Warriors kept on shooting. The coach pulled them all the starters, brought in the backup. They started going to the rim, getting fouls, getting free throws. They hit some jumpers too, and they were able to come back. It was because they had that team changed their game plan. They weren't shooting. And then what happened? They brought the starters back in. They still were cold, and they ended up losing the game. And that can happen. That's a problem for them. I don't see a lot of ways that Boston comes away with this. Boston played some of the best basketball in the first round when they took out Brooklyn, and then they played one of the best teams, a little softened by not having Chris Middleton, in Milwaukee, and then they played an outstanding defensive team in Miami. So the main reason that I think that they have even a puncher's chances, they've gone through the hardest route in the East. I mean, they took every of the best challengers. They didn't have to play the 76ers. They didn't have to, they played the teams that were the betting favorites at the beginning of the year, the best defensive and the number one seed, and the defending champions, right? That's a road. So, you got to give them respect for that. I just think that they're too soft after the star. We always say this. Every team has a star player, not necessarly the Detroit team, but every other team
right
has a star. And this team does too. But we always say, you can tell me who your second best player is, and I'll tell you who's going to win a series.
Right.
And you can't answer that for this Boston team. So I just got to go a different direction.
And for those who don't know what we're talking about that 2004 Pistons team where we're all still mad, including Shaquille O'Neal, that we lost that finals against Tayshaun Prince and Rip.
Chauncey
I think Darvin.
Wallace,
I think was Darvin Ham on that team too.
I think
Rip
he was.
Hamilton. I think he was on that team. I think he was on the bench on that team. Rasheed Wallace was on the bench.
Right.
It's a whole bunch of not a single one of those guys is going to the Hall of Fame as a basketball player.
Right. I mean,
maybe he's a coach, but not a basketball
never
player.
lost that series. But okay, so I'm with you. So, Brian, I'm looking at some X factors. They always talk about what an X factor is. And an X factor to me is that guy, if he has a good game, usually maybe a lesser known guy or not a popular, general popular guy or whatever, you know, that team, it increases that team's chances of winning. And to me, the X factors in this series, man, for Boston, I have are collectively the big men. I think the Warriors can be exploited down low. And I think if guys like, 56-year-old Al Horford, Robert Williams, and the big light skinned, stocky guy, I think if they can get some easy buckets in the paint against the Warriors, I think that helps helps Boston's chances of winning. They don't have to rely on jumpers. I also think when Marcus Smart scores 20 or more, I think that increases Boston's chances as well. Now, I can't rely on Marcus Smart hitting 20, don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, if it's a 6-game series, he might do it twice because, sometimes he gets, jumper happy and doesn't realize why he's wide open. But, if those things can happen, I think that increases Boston's chances of staying in these games and winning. But if you tell me who's more likely to blow out the other team, I'm always going to pick the Warriors because Boston really doesn't blow out anybody unless you play or shoot absolutely terribly bad. That's the only way they do it, which I don't see the Warriors doing with all the players that they have. But who you think are the X factors on the Warriors? That'll help them win this series or
Well,
make it a quick
let me
end.
talk about the Celtics before I go over to the Warriors
Yep.
real quick. One of the reasons, and I didn't mention this earlier, that I think the Warriors have a really good chance is that this matchup gives them the advantage of not playing an outstanding big man on the offensive side. Robert Williams is an outstanding defensive player. He's not
Right.
much of a defense player. Al Horford is a little older and can be an X factor and can have a good game, but he's not going to have a big series. From that side of it, to me, is a guy you didn't mention, Jaylen Brown. Like Jaylen Brown, has the ability to score 20 points, and if someone's going to step up and give them that number 2 guy that would give them an opportunity, I think that guy is likely to be Jaylen Brown. But switching over to the Warriors, I think the X factor there is Poole. Poole was super hot at the beginning of the playoffs, but he's become more in line with who he has been throughout the season, where he's been, good with a couple moments of great, but not the same pedal down on the throttle the whole time player that he was at the beginning of the series. So obviously, I think that is a big X factor. If they can get him to perform as the number 2, realistically, I think Clay is the number 3 guy at this point. I think that is a really, really big deal. Another X factor, obviously, is Clay. Will Clay be able to shoot, and can he play defense? We saw the Warriors playing a little bit more zone than you might otherwise like to see from a professional basketball team. And I was obviously because before up top, you knew Steph was a turnstile, but you had Clay, who was a really top defensive player, and now both of them are not the greatest, and so you kind of have to protect them by keeping someone in the middle. So, anyways, Poole would be the X factor. I think there. I also think Gary Payton's health, the third's health. He's coming back for the series. I think that's great, but it's hard to come back from a final series after having missed a lot of time and trying to jump right in there. I think that the advantage that he has is it's harder to come back as an offensive player to try and find rhythm than it is to come back as a defensive player to find grit. But it'll be easy. I will not be surprised if I see him gassed. If he can come back, is in shape, and can do, it's a big problem for some, probably Jaylen Brown. I would imagine that would be the matchup that you'll see is Gary Payton III manning up on Jaylen Brown and trying to lock him down. But either way, they need that up top, backcourt defensive player, and Gary Payton's an X factor as a result of coming back.
Yeah, to 2 last things. Number 1, I'm interested in game 1 because this is just my personal opinion watching the Warriors. I don't think the Warriors team defense is like Miami's. So Boston might be able to get, good shots. Clay's defense is kind of slipped. Dre's defense is kind of slipped. People even think Curry's a good defensive player. He's not, but people think he is. And I think that's only because maybe the other couple guys' defense is probably slipping. People think that Curry has defense, but he doesn't. But the team defense, yeah, they're fine. But individually, they've all slipped. So I'm looking to see what shots Boston gets in the first game of the series, and also if Warriors come out rusty. But what I want to also ask you about, Brian, I can see a lot of people like to complain about referees. I think refereeing is going to be very important in this series, and I'm going to tell you why. The Warriors have a free flowing offense. So if they call all that tic tac stuff on the perimeter and all the holding, maybe and grabbing, that's an advantage for the Warriors. Whereas Boston knows they have to know they can't keep up with the Warriors offensive like that. They're going to have to hold. They're going to have to use their size, their body, kind of grind out victories. And if they don't call that stuff, the physicality of it, I think that's an advantage for Boston, or at least to keep the game closer. So I think the referees is definitely going to be a factor in this series. And I can see people complaining about it. I can see
they'll
people complain
complain no matter
already.
what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But I can see it because they'll see maybe disparities of fouls, from game 1 to 2 or 3 or whatever. So, I'm looking into that too.
Credit the Warriors for never getting too caught up in that, because their offense has been their offense for
Yeah.
3 championships.
Yep.
And they've had to deal with people, because that is absolutely what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
You're supposed to dirty up the game. You're supposed to slow the pace down. You're supposed to, bang with them, and go in there and trade body blows,
Yep.
basketball body blows, basically. And see, the Warriors have shown that they can play that game. Now, of course, when they have won the championships in the past, they've also been top defensive teams. Draymond was playing great defense. Clay was playing great defense. They were both on the top 2 teams for all defensive. They don't got that anymore, but I still think that they can do that. I totally agree with you, though, that in the first couple games, it'll set a tempo or a rhythm for both teams by how much they can get away with and how physical they can get.
Yeah, JB, how about you think? Also, one last thing. If Boston loses the first 2 at home, series over. If it's 2-0 Warriors, series is over. They're not beating them 4 out of 6 to win the title. But JB, what you think?
I thought so. Boston's a higher seed. I thought they were starting in.
They're starting in San Francisco.
In the city.
Yeah, no, Golden State's a higher seed. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So, I think you guys kind of said it all. I'm interested. I think Brian, initially a couple weeks ago, you were saying that if the Warriors had a chance, if they can kind of get all those cylinders to start firing at the same time, and that's what happened. They also, to me, got an easier route to the finals. Not to say easy, because anybody who gets to the finals is going to be tough, but
they got to avoid a healthy Phoenix.
Exactly, and they played Dallas.
Hey, Jordan had easy routes too. So yeah, I mean, it's like whatever.
he did it, until when they could finally get past those Pistons teams, and those guys kind of left. But true, and that's how it works, right? So I think they benefited from that. I don't know how stiff the competition has been up to now. Boston's going to have it tough, because I just think Clay and Curry is a more powerful 1 and 2 than Tatum and Brown. If they're all firing at 100%, all 4 of those players, Curry and Clay, they win that matchup. So it's going to depend on what the other guys do. And if they can, like you said, keep it free flowing, do what Warriors do, I think they win this series for sure. I don't want to see Boston win another series. So I'm going to just keep that real and put my bias out there. I don't want them to have more championships than the Lakers. So I hope they lose in 4. So, hey, if you're from Boston, I feel you. Your team's in the finals. I get it.
Right.
Hey, this is sports rivalry runs deep. So, yeah, we're going to see.
Jason, I called out Warriors in 5. I don't know if you gave a game.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't. You're right. I can't say Boston. If Boston wins, it has to be in 6. I can't see them winning game 7 in Golden State. So I picked Boston. I got to stay with them. And I'm like you, Glenn. I'm a Laker fan, but I got to stick with Boston. So I'm going to say in 6. They damn sure ain't going to win in 5. So yeah, Boston in 6. And we rolling with that.
Cool.
Are you coaching matchup, man? Because I want to give a shout out to Kerr and to Ime Udoka as well from Boston, who's took this team a long way. So shouts out to them. So what do you guys any thoughts on the coaches?
I'll say this. Ime Udoka has been super impressive in coaching not a young team, but a team that's on the cusp more than has gotten there already. He's done a really great job. And you see the players have responded to him. They trust him. They listen to him. That's great. Steve Kerr's a veteran. He's also one of my favorite human beings right now for some of the things that he's been willing to say and put out there. And he has taken even Clay and all these other folks have been giving Mark Jackson his flowers, mainly because he was competing for some jobs until some bad stuff came out about him a month or so ago. But anyways, Mark Jackson, the people come and said, hey, Mark Jackson really kind of built that defensive basis that Steve Kerr supercharged with the offense. Steve Kerr has done an excellent job for years with that team. And he just knows how to get into work. And we saw that when Mike Brown was trying to coach that exact same team of very talented players, it did not work. So whatever it is that Steve Kerr does it in a way that those players respond to and play well. Yes, I know we're not Mike Brown fans.
I was about to mention Luke Walton, because Luke Walton did it too. He won 20 games in a row with that team.
Yeah, man, Luke.
But Mike Brown didn't do it, right? Luke Walton was able to win with that team. Mike Brown wasn't.
Right.
Oddly enough, I think they both ended up as Sacramento coaches. I don't know how that's going to work out. But anyways, the point being is I love what Udoka has done. I think that he's going to be a strong coach for a long period of time. But right now, Steve Kerr is the better coach, and I think everyone knows that.
He's also married to Nia Long, so he wins extra points.
He is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke Walton just got a job. He's on the assistant now for Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. But Udoka, I'm with you on Udoka, man. He deserves credit because I don't know if you guys remember, but remember they were talking about breaking up Tatum and Brown because they said it's just not working. It's not getting us to where we need to go. And now Udoka's taking them to the finals, so I'm sure that pairing is going to be around for a few more years. But Kerr, people have a misconception about the NBA that it's easy to coach talent. It's not. These guys have huge egos, and you have to learn how to manage them. And that's why Phil Jackson to me is the greatest coach ever. He was able to manage the Rodmans, the Pippins, the Jordans, the Kobes, the Shaqs. That's not easy to do. Just throw the ball out there and just have those guys play nice and win championships. That's not easy to do. And Steve Kerr, he was under Popovich. He was under, Phil Jackson, whatever. He saw, what it took to manage superstars. So what he's doing is not easy, and I give him a lot of respect. He's definitely the better coach in this series. Nothing really more to say about Curry. He has the championships, he has the hardware, he has the respect. Udoka, he's trying to get to that level, but he's had a great start so far, and I hope he's successful, but not too successful, like you said, Glenn, because I'm a Laker fan. Don't want him to, win a bunch of titles, but
they could definitely
got to give the coaching edge though to Steve Kerr in this one.
Yeah, he's got the roster too. So
yeah, he's got the veteran team. So
yeah, so it's gonna be interesting, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch it for sure. It's a good matchup. For the season to come down to this, I think is good for the fans.
We got the two best teams in the NBA right now on each side playing. That's what you want. That's what you
want. Word. Okay. So unless you guys have any parting thoughts, let's shift over to some Laker talk.
No, we'll be interesting to check back in, but let's talk Lakers.
Yeah, and anybody, if you're want to clown, go ahead, because our teams, we've been fishing. Okay, so we're gonna see how that team's weak. We still got Westbrook, we still got AD and AD's ankles and legs. We got all that. So clown, I'm with that. We got a new coach. We're Laker fans. We're gonna talk about it. So Darvin Ham, who I actually met once, which is funny enough, at a game back, but actually I remember him being a big time dunker, being on some of the squads. He had some, I don't know about the coaching though, so we're going to see. Have you guys been reading anything? Or, he obviously won the job because he's, qualified. So any initial thoughts for you guys? And it's not Doc Rivers, so I'm going to put that out there too. I'm very happy about that.
Go first.
Hey, all right. So look here. I think I told you guys already, maybe on text message, that it doesn't matter who coaches the Lakers as long as Westbrook is there. Thankfully, we only have him for one more year. Darvin Ham can go 20-62 this year, and I won't say anything bad about him. I'm going to say Westbrook's still on the team. I'm not going to judge him until Westbrook is off the team and off the books next year. So to me, his second year is going to be his rookie year, because personally, I don't think there's any coach that can win big playoff games with Westbrook on the roster. So, and plus our roster is old. Let's just keep it real. It's old. So, what can everybody wants to blame Vogel? Who's going to do something with this old ass roster? You know what I mean? So, Darvin Ham, I heard a lot of good things about him. Rick Bucher said everybody in the NBA, executives in the NBA are shocked that the Lakers actually made the right hire for a change. So, Darvin Ham, he has respect, and he's going to get respect from players, I guess. Bucher said that he blew them away with X's and O's, and I guess LeBron is bought in because he rushed out to give his support or whatever. So all that is great. It has to work on the court. I don't know if Darvin Ham can coach. I'm rooting for him. I mean, who knows? I don't know if he's going to be a bust or not, but we'll see. I just know the Lakers have hired 6 coaches in 12 years. So the problem with the Lakers ain't the coaches, it's the organization as a whole. So hopefully Darvin Ham is there for his 4 or 5 year contract and the Lakers get better. But I don't have any, to be honest with you, I don't have any expectations for year one, or I don't have any expectations as long as Westbrook is on the roster. So we're going to see what he can do in year two when the roster can be sort of retooled and a lot of those contracts are expired. Brian, have you went and looked into Darvin Ham recently?
Yeah, I have. I've actually been doing a lot of reading, and it's mostly anecdotal, but some things that were striking to me. Players who have no attachment to the Lakers at all. Al Horford, by example, came out and said he absolutely deserves this job. He's by far the best candidate out there. The Lakers are lucky to have him. These are comments that are coming throughout the league. It's not just people who have an interest in the Lakers' success. It's just players in general have a ton of respect for Darvin Ham, both as a people motivator, a team leader, and as you mentioned, X's and O's. So I think that that's a really big deal, and it starts them off on the right foot. Having LeBron jump out there, and he was very vocal about how happy he was. Meanwhile, Westbrook was silent. I think that's also something to be said there. I did a lot of reading that said that, Darvin Ham says that he has committed to the Lakers to try and bring Westbrook back into his MVP form. I think that's probably what he needed to say in part in order to get the job. But I agree with you. I don't. As long as Westbrook's on this team, we're never going to be good. We said that at the beginning of last year when they had championship aspirations. I was like, I don't have any type of aspiration like that as long as Westbrook's on the team. My biggest worry right now is that they're going to go and trade 1 year of Westbrook sucking because they're worried about LeBron leaving for 2 or 3 years of someone else who may not be much better in the overall. Like, for example, there's already talk about a trade for your boy Kyle Lowry, and sending him there. There's talk about them trying to figure out a deal. He said that Sean Marks and met with the GM of the Lakers having drinks or something like that, and there was talks about a trade for Kyrie because the Nets aren't going to offer him a long-term deal because he decided not to get vaccinated. Those mistakes are way bigger mistakes than suffering through 1 year of Westbrook. But unfortunately, as we've seen every team that LeBron has been on, in Cleveland twice, he holds this, if we don't win this year, and I don't think we're going to win, I'm going to run over their head, and teams start making all types of stupid decisions trying to make good for right now to get LeBron to stay. He hasn't stayed before. I really hope, regardless of what it means for the LeBron's future in Los Angeles, that they do not double down on stupid and take on a worse player or a worse deal to try and get rid of Westbrook. We all just need to sit back, suffer through that. Going back to Darvin Ham, I read the same thing about how he really kind of blew him away with his X's and O's, understanding of the game, his ability to put together a game plan that used all the players, including Russell Westbrook. I think that's great. One thing that I thought was pretty interesting was that, one, he got away with this, and two, that he was willing to do it knowing that it might cost him the opportunity for the job. He insisted that they keep Kurt Rambis out of coaches' meetings, which was something that happened towards the beginning of the season, which completely sabotaged Frank Vogel. They started putting Kurt Rambis in coaches' meetings. He's not a coach. He's a front office executive. They started putting him in meetings, and Darvin Ham apparently said, here's one of the things that I want my coaches to have my coaches' meetings. We cannot have other people in there. And what he was basically saying is no Rambis. And his wife obviously is a top executive. So the fact that he was able to say that and put that in there and get that out there and make that clear, I think already speaks to the type of strength and respect that he can command in the locker room. Do I know that this is going to equal success in 2, 3, 4 years? Do I know that they're not going to do the same silly stuff that they did with Frank Vogel, because Frank Vogel was not the problem, and fire Darvin Ham in a couple of years? I don't know that. But
Yeah.
I think they made the right hire. I think they gave the right person the opportunity. I think they have, at this point, the right idea and the right intentions. The problem is that the Lakers have historically, in teams with LeBron in his last year on contract, have historically second guessed themselves into oblivion. And so you have to worry about that. I mean, and that's just the reality of being a Lakers fan and, rooting for the buses and dealing with the fact that we have LeBron on the team.
Yeah, Brian. I heard that whole Russell Westbrook for Kyrie Irving. It's not as stupid as people are thinking. They say that can absolutely happen. Kyrie coming
sure.
over, but Russell Westbrook would not play for the Nets though. They would just
they'd buy
sit him out.
out.
Yeah, they'll just sit him, and if they can't buy him out, they'll just sit him out. But he will never suit up for the Nets. Yeah. So I heard that could be a real thing. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they said it.
I've heard it's a real possibility as well.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
I don't want Kyrie on this team. It's like I do not want I do not want him to say I am. I do not want him on this team. He is a team cancerous player. He is no different than Westbrook. Yeah. He's more talented than Westbrook right now. But from a personality and team aspect, think about it. He has never, not in Cleveland, even though he was really talented and helped them win that championship, not in Cleveland, not in Boston, not in the Nets, ever done anything to help a team win.
Yeah, they said he came out a couple of weeks ago. I didn't hear, but they said he made a comment a couple of weeks ago how he messed it up with LeBron and stuff like that, how he really messed up, whatever. And I think that kind of started the whole thing. Then, like you said, people having
messed
drinks
it up
together.
With KD and the Nets, though.
Yeah. So, KD, that boy, KD, you could be playing for finals every single year.
And we have to point this out, right? So KD left Boston to go. Everyone's seen this all over, but some people.
No, KD left the Warriors. KD left the Warriors.
KD left the Warriors. Kyrie left left Boston, both because they wanted to play in the finals, and the two teams that they left are here in the finals.
And what does that say? They were the problem.
They were the problem.
They were the problem.
Or they weren't as good as they think that they were. They weren't as important as they thought they were.
Like exactly.
I don't think KD was the problem.
Right.
They were winning with KD there.
Yeah.
But I just think that KD is more impressed with himself and his ability to stay healthy, which is really the problem, than he deserves. And with Kyrie, it's absolutely, addition by subtraction. Anytime you take him and get rid of him, they don't even have the player that he was traded for. Or that they brought in when he left. It's a complete loss in the area of Kyrie, and that has been a complete addition for that Boston team.
I wish I knew somebody knew Durant, but nobody can tell me that Durant isn't pissed. He got swept out the first round, the Warriors in the final.
No.
He's pissed. With these NBA egos, man, he is mad as hell. He just ain't saying nothing about it. But GB, you got any thoughts on this?
Man, I don't know what the Lakers are gonna do roster wise. I hope Darvin gets a fair shot, as with any coach that the Lakers get. Same I wanted for Vogel, and he did. He got him one in that first year, second year. I'm just hoping that Darvin Ham gets the same thing, that he doesn't get a short run and then blows up somewhere else because we're, short-term thinking.
Chasing kid.
So, yeah, exactly. And it's happened many times, right? Where you let the coach go, and then they're like, oh, damn, they are good. And they can come back later on, but get them while they're on the up and coming. So we'll see what happens. I don't know about Kyrie or any of them coming. I think they're great players. It's just what it does to team chemistry is you can't argue it. I mean, we've seen it too many times. So don't be foolish. I do see the Lakers kind of running that LA Rams situation of like leveraging the future for the now, right? So if you get one of those guys and get to the finals and win one, you do it, and then you don't worry about it later, which is kind of what we did for that last championship we got. As all the young players we traded away are balling in other cities. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm all for it. I hope Darvin's great, man. I remember him dunking on fools crazy. I think he was in the dunk contest too.
Well, I remember. I don't remember any pro highlights of him. I just remember highlights of him. I think he went to Texas Tech. I didn't look it up. I'm pretty sure it's probably somewhere in Texas. Texas Tech. I rember him dunking and having a lot of hops. I don't remember him too much in the pros though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he was Blake Griffin without a jump shot.
Right.
Blake Griffin has one, but
yeah. So
you like to see him go to the rim.
Yep. Yeah. So let's see. Best of luck to him, man. I'm rooting for him always because that's my squad. Excited to see what happens in the finals. I think that was kind of our show today. It was really just NBA focused right before the finals start tomorrow. So that's pretty much it. Unless you guys have any closing thoughts, we can end out on our last segment, and that's it.
Nah, man, I don't have
Last
nothing.
segment we go.
Nope. Last segment. Who
Um,
starts it off?
man,
GB, you starting it off?
I really don't have nothing. A quick shout out to my nephew Austin, my niece Olivia, just because, and then Alyssa and JoJo, my niece and nephew, are celebrating their birthday. So just love to the family on this one. Shout out to my mom who's here in the audience for this episode. My sister, just fam. Love you guys. That's really it.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing, man. Shouts out to Brian, your family, Glenn, your family. Shouts out to all y'all. Hope everybody, if they're not feeling well, hope they get well soon. Love all of you guys, man. Appreciate y'all doing this podcast, taking time to listen to me, even if you don't agree with what I say, but taking time to even listen and banter back with me. But I appreciate doing this podcast with you guys. Seriously, man. I appreciate everybody out there that listens and subscribes as well. That's it.
For me, I'm just going to bring up a repeat topic. Over the last week since we last talked, there's been a lot of new news that's come out about the Uvalde shooting and how parents were being maced and pepper sprayed and put in handcuffs and having to jump over fences to try and rescue their children, while the police department stood idly by trying to wait for reinforcements while getting 911 calls from small children begging for help. It's been about a year since all these people were talking about how we needed to start giving guns to teachers so we can protect in these situations. And, if everybody had a gun, then we'd all be protected. And a man with a gun looked at a teenage boy with an AR-14 and said, "Go right ahead, go and lock yourself in with these small children." The way that we have tried to stop these things from happening has not worked. And we need to figure out a way to reduce the number of guns that are out there and available. If it were a Latin person, they would say build a wall. If it were a Black person, they'd talk about how Black Lives Matter activists are all criminals. And if it were a Muslim person, they would say that they need to be, they're all terrorists. But whenever it's another person or another type of thing, these folks, and this gentleman was Latin, by the way. Whenever it's one of these other folks, people want to sit there and talk about mental health and how did they get the gun, and it's not the gun's fault and all this other stuff, but the narrative changes based on the tint in the skin, and it's ridiculous. The last thing I'll say is the reason why I'm a little hot about it is a few hours ago there was another mass shooting in Tulsa where at a hospital 4 people were killed. Tulsa is a hot topic for today because it's also the anniversary of the Tulsa massacre. Where several people were killed years ago. At some point in time, people need to get sick and fed up and just start demanding more, because it's not a political thing. 90% of the people who listen to this and the population want some level of gun control, not the abolishment of weapons and things like that, which there's varying degrees, but some level of gun control. So it's not a political thing. We're all on the same page for one time. And yet we still can't get anything done. That's it.
Yeah, do something, man. I'm with you. Please.
Yeah.
Do something.
Get money out of politics. And when you take the money that the NRA is pumping into, Ted Cruz and the rest of these gutless punks, when you take that money away from them and they don't have a contractual obligation to the NRA, it's amazing how quickly, or other organizations, it's amazing how quickly you can start getting back to politics being civil. I don't know what you want to call it, but politics being about opinions as opposed to paid
about where the dollar's at. And if you own a gun store, you can go into any other business. I'm just going to say that. So
Yep.
Thanks everybody for listening. Sports Counterpoints podcast is June 1st, 2022. Enjoy the finals. Enjoy the hockey finals as well. As Eastern Conference and Western Conference are kicking off. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening.